The esophagus pierces the diaphragm at the esophageal hiatus, and then it leads to the stomach, which is a J shaped organ. The stomach functions primarily as a storage compartment. It's expandable, and it typically holds up to about a half a liter when empty, but it can expand to hold up to about 1.5 liters when full. If you don't have an idea of what a liter is, think about a soda bottle. This here on the right is a picture of a stomach resection. And this is when the stomach is made smaller in an effort to regulate the stomach's feedback urge of hunger. If the stomach is full, you are satiated. If you have a smaller stomach, you feel satiated sooner. The stomach is really made for mechanical and a little bit of chemical digestion. You don't absorb a lot through the stomach's lining. Most nutrient absorption happens in the small intestine, but substances like caffeine and aspirin can be absorbed through the stomach. The stomach is a parasympathetic organ involved in resting and digesting. The parasympathetic neurons innervating the stomach branch from cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve. The stomach has a blood supply, and that comes from the celiac trunk that comes right off of the descending aorta. But the veins dump the collected blood into the hepatic portal system. Remember that a portal system is like a direct communication or a direct connection of blood vessels. We saw a portal system in the hypophyseal portal system between the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary gland. What is in a portal system is not in general circulation. So this hepatic portal system collects blood from the digestive organs and the spleen, and it sends all of that blood to the liver to be cleansed before being released into systemic circulation. The fundus is the upper part of the stomach, and it often presses against the diaphragm. Gases can collect here in the fundus, and when they press against the diaphragm, it leads to burping. The fundus is also very sensitive, and it contains chemo and baroreceptors that signal fullness to the brain using fibers of the vagus nerve. Hiatal hernias occur when a part of the stomach, usually the fundus, pushes through the esophageal hiatus into the thoracic cavity, and it makes the stomach smaller and it causes a lot of discomfort. This can also lead to acid reflux as the stomach contents move upwards. While surgery is an option, exercises and other non-invasive methods are often recommended for management. Thoracic surgery is kind of tough. The pyloric sphincter is a smooth muscle valve that controls the exit of the slurry to the small intestine. When you are hungry, the growling of your stomach is produced in part by the opening of this valve and the lack of slurry to enter into the small intestine. This valve very tightly controls the delivery of the slurry into the duodenum, or the part of the small intestine that is pictured here. This is the body of the stomach, and this down here is the antrum of the stomach. The stomach performs both mechanical and chemical digestion. It does this through churning your food and pummeling it for mechanical digestion, and through the action of some, not all, but some enzymes. It does chemical digestion. Its anatomy includes the lesser curvature and the greater curvatures, to which the lesser and greater ommenta are attached. These ommenta are mesenteric-like sheets of fat containing blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatic vessels, vascularizing and innervating the stomach. Along the surface of the stomach, as you can see here, are macroscopic structures called rugae. These are basically folds that allow the stomach to expand. The stomach's muscularis externa consists of three layers of longitudinal, circular, and oblique layers of smooth muscle. These layers aid in the churning and the mechanical digestion. This differs from the two layers found in most other parts of the gastrointestinal tract, and this extra layer of obliquely arranged smooth muscle helps the stomach in pummeling your food in a process called segmentation. Segmentation is not chemical digestion. It is mechanical digestion, much like that tearing and ripping that your teeth and tongue did of your food in your mouth. Although segmentation uses those three layers of smooth muscle, segmentation does not propel food forward. It pummels the food, breaking it down with that mechanical digestion. This segmentation is the cause of all that mixing and churning that you can sometimes feel in your stomach after or during a big meal. Check out this length of GI tract here on the right, or the first one that's on the left of the picture. And what you can see is very dark brown boluses of food and then very lightly colored beige boluses of food. Segmentation mixes and churns these boluses together until they are one homogeneous mixture. There is no breaking down of the food by enzymes in this process. That would be chemical digestion, and that does happen here. Although it really is this segmentation that the stomach contributes to the digestion process of your foods. As we will find out in the next slide, the stomach secretes lots of enzymes and liquid substances like hydrochloric acid for chemical digestion. When these liquid forms are mixed with the bolus of compacted food, we are left with a slurry, a homogeneous mixture that's called chyme. This makes me think of The Simpsons. I'm sorry. This makes me think of The Simpsons episode when Lisa works with Mr. Burns to clean up the ocean, and he ends up taking out all the mammals of the ocean, and he makes them into a slurry called Little Lisa's Slurry. The gastric mucosa that lines the stomach is sometimes called the secretory sheet because it secretes a lot of mucus, hormones, and digestive juices. The lining consists of simple columnar epithelium, and there are goblet or mucus cells that are scattered among it, very numerous. These cells secrete mucus to protect the stomach lining from its own juices. There are gastric pits that are located in the epithelium, and these pits extend into gastric glands. And you can see some of them here, even though you're not really seeing the output onto the lumen. These glands, they change in cell composition as the stomach transitions from the fundic or cardiac area to the pyloric area. These glands also become more numerous toward the pyloric section of the stomach. Pictured here are two different types of gastric glands that you can find in the stomach's mucosa. Sometimes students get confused as to what a gastric pit is and what a gastric gland. In my mind, they're the same thing. The pit is usually just the top portion of the gland, and the pit usually only includes the simple columnar cells and the mucus cells that we see lining the mucosa in other areas. Parietal cells, which are placed here in the glands, are cells that create two things: intrinsic factor, which helps you absorb B12 and essential for anemia, and hydrochloric acid. These cells make your stomach contents very acidic, and when these cells are overactive, they can create too much hydrochloric acid, leading to issues like heartburn. However, this hydrochloric acid is completely necessary to denature the proteins that you've been eating. Chief cells secrete pepsinogen, an enzyme that breaks down proteins. In fact, it gets converted into pepsin, which is the active form of this enzyme. Protein breakdown, kinda, very little, begins in the saliva, but once it reaches the stomach, this is where we really break down a lot of those protein fibers. G cells over here, these secrete gastrin, which is like the go button for digestion. Gastrin is often called the go hormone. Interestingly, G cells are activated even before food hits your stomach. It's triggered with stimuli like the smell of food. In contrast, D cells that are not pictured here, no, they are not, they secrete a hormone called somatostatin, which is a stop hormone, and it signals digestive processes to halt when the stomach becomes empty. As you move from the fundus to the pyloric region, the glands become more numerous and they become much deeper, extending into the submucosa. Important for us are parietal cells. They can become overactive for many reasons, including excess gastrin, excess histamine, possibly due to allergies, or just overstimulation from the vagus nerve releasing acetylcholine. Treatment options include antihistamines and anticholinergic drugs. The first line of defense for heartburn, though, is usually a group of medications called proton pump inhibitors. Remember that a proton is just a hydrogen cation, and recall that pH is a measurement of those hydrogen cations, and more of them means that a solution is acidic. These drugs block hydrogen cations at the source, preventing these parietal cells from releasing hydrochloric acid. However, finding the right proton pump inhibitor can take time. The other important thing that parietal cells secrete, which we have seen before, is intrinsic factor, which helps the small intestine absorb B12.